Hey guys, this is my journal club for July. This is Jared Jackson. So, the article that I chose to read for this month was The Disturbances of Sleep and Circadian Rhythms, a Novel Risk Factors for Obesity. The authors are Josiane L. Broussard and Eve Van Carter. It was done at the Sleep and Chronobiology Laboratory, the Department of Integrated Physiology at the University of Colorado Boulder. And it was published in the current opinions of endocrine and diabetes and obesity in October of 2016. Um, so the main thing, I'm going to go through all the questions one by one. So the main thing that attracted me to this paper was um, the article describes the link between sleep and circadian rhythms to obesity. And this is interesting to me because obviously a lot of my patients will be struggling with sleep and a lot of my patients will be obese, and it will be interesting to find out in those future patients if there's a correlation for them between sleep and obesity, and if their sleep schedules can be altered to help them with weight loss. And I came across this article through the biological rhythms class, obviously. So the study it really looked at four different questions, but there was an overarching main question that I was looking at. So the overarching main question was: Are disturbances of sleep and circadian dysregulation implicated in the risk for developing obesity? Um, and then the four side questions that it addresses is first, disturbances of sleep and circadian rhythms in children and young adults as novel risk factors for the development of long-term obesity. Second, the impact of circadian misalignments as occurs in shift work on energy balance and risk of weight gain. The third question is the role of the endocannabinoid system as a potential link between sleep, circadian rhythms, and feeding. And the last question was the role of disturbances in the circadian structure of the gut microbiome as a putative mediating mechanism linking abnormal eating pattern and the risk of weight gain. So the importance slash relevance slash context of the question is it's important to know about our sleeping habits and the rhythms and how they impact our eating habits, because this is important for our obviously our health and our weight. So if you can, for instance, someone who is on shift work, it may be helpful to educate them on these type of things, um, and then they can maybe alter their eating schedule so they won't be so hungry at a certain time, or they won't have like an appetite, for instance. That's just one of the questions that it addresses. And the methods for this study, it wasn't really a typical like random crossover or anything type of study. It was just a review of multiple studies. From what I could tell from all the different studies that it looked at, um, it was a mixed type, but most of them were pretty reliable, and most of them had randomized patients that they were looking at in randomized populations. And there, from what I could tell, there was no follow up overall. Um, so the primary results, to summarize, for the overarching question of are there disruptions in circadian rhythms and sleep are a risk factor for weight gain and obesity, the answer to that is yes. Um, so because of that, disturbances of sleep and circadian rhythms in children and young adults are novel risk factors for the development of long-term obesity was one thing that they came to conclude. Young adults and children um, and less sleep had habits of eating more often and craving more sweet foods and increased weight. Also, the impact of circadian misalignment as occurs in shift work on energy balance, which was the next question. Um, on energy balance and the risk of weight gain. There was a reduced total daily energy expenditure in combination with eating during the biological night, and this may be a mechanism by which night shift schedules increase the risk of weight gain and obesity. And then the next question was the role of the endocannabinoid system as a potential link between sleep, circadian rhythms, and feeding. The answer to this was the ability of the endocannabinoid system to control appetite, feeding, and peripheral metabolism has been the target of pharmaceutical efforts to develop anti-obesity drugs. However, the regulation by the system, by the circadian and sleep processes, has not yet been examined previously. But when the sleep was restricted participants reported increases in hunger and appetite concomitant with the elevation of certain hormones and enzymes, and they were less able to inhibit the intake of palatable snacks. Research suggests activation of the endocannabinoid system may be involved in excessive food intake during insufficient sleep. The findings also point out a role of the increase in ghrelin release and excessive food intake, particularly sweets, in the state of sleep debt. And then the next question was the role of the disturbances in the circadian structure of the gut microbiome as a putative mediating mechanism linking abnormal eating pattern and the risk of weight gain. So for this, they concluded that diet-induced obesity can dampen the rhythmicity of feeding/fasting fluctuations in the gut microbiome. And then the idea was of chrononutrition was discussed, and it has been discussed in the context of obesity, since studies have shown that eating at the wrong time of day can induce weight gain, even in the face of identical caloric intake. And then also time-restricted feeding reduced body fat accumulation, lowered inflammation, and improved glucose intolerance. Improved glucose tolerance compared to ad libitum feeding or feeding without a schedule. This better protected against circadian dysregulation, and time-restricted feeding has also been shown to partially restore normal gut microbial fluctuations as compared to ad libitum eating. So it pretty much says that if you eat on a schedule, you're not going to be as hungry at other times compared to when you're not eating on a schedule. And the schedule could be like 7 a.m., 11 a.m., etc. If you're eating without a schedule, you're going to have more cravings throughout the day, pretty much is what I was saying. And then the next question on the list of things to talk about is describe what you think the results can or cannot be applied to your own patient's situation. And the results of this can most definitely be applied to my future patients. Because if I can encourage good sleep hygiene as well as providing eating schedules for those who are struggling with their weight, it can definitely alter their circadian rhythms. And let's say I put them on an eating schedule of 7 a.m., noon, and then alter their habits to have good sleep hygiene. This could, even without them changing their diet or exercise substantially, this could alter their circadian rhythms to get them more on track and cause them to lose weight. And then the last thing was conclude with your own decision of the utility of the study in your practice. And I can use this in my future practice to educate my patients on sleep hygiene and regular eating schedules, like I just stated. So overall, this is a pretty good article. I would recommend it. And thank you guys for listening, and have a good day.